I wasn't gone that long, just enough for everything to fall apart. The moment I turned the key and stepped inside, something felt off. Not just off, wrong. The hallway smelled like cheap cereal and baby wipes, and the carpet had unfamiliar stains. My duffel bag slid from my shoulder as I stared at the chaos that had taken over what used to be my quiet, orderly apartment. Toys scattered across the floor, a stroller blocking the hallway, the TV blaring some cartoon show, and then my younger sister, Kayla, barefoot in one of my old t-shirts, holding a baby on her hip like this had always been her home. "Oh, hey," she said, like we were roommates and I just returned from the grocery store. "Didn't know you were coming back today." I stood there, frozen. "What are you doing here?" She blinked, confused by the question. "Mom said you wouldn't mind." "Mom?" "Of course. The spare key. I had left it with my parents years ago, just in case." Kayla walked away mid-conversation, calling over her shoulder, "Kids, say hi to Uncle Mason." Two kids I barely knew ran out of my bedroom, laughing, dragging their sticky fingers along the wall. My hands trembled. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door or demand answers. I just walked to the kitchen, sat down, and called my mom. Her voice was cheerful, as if nothing was wrong. "Oh," she told me the shelter was full, and she needed a place for a bit. "Don't be dramatic, Mason. You're barely even home." I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "You gave away my home without asking. You're overreacting. Be supportive." She's family. That was the beginning of the unraveling, when I realized that in my family, being kind always meant being silent. That if I didn't play the good son, the good brother, I would be cast as cruel. I ended the call, not with anger, but with something worse, numbness. She was in my home, and suddenly, I was the intruder. It wasn't just my space they took. It was my voice, my peace, my place in my own life. The next morning, I woke up on the couch, if you could call it sleep. One of the kids had spilled juice on the cushions the night before, and now the fabric was sticky and sour-smelling. My blanket was gone. My noise-canceling headphones? Broken. My work laptop? Covered in crayon. Kayla was in the kitchen cooking eggs like it was Sunday brunch, talking on speakerphone with a friend, completely ignoring me. I cleared my throat. "Can we talk?" She rolled her eyes. "If this is about the couch, I told them not to jump on it." I shook my head. "No, Kayla. This isn't about the couch. This is about everything. You're in my apartment. You didn't ask. You've taken over my room, my office, everything." She didn't even flinch. "Where else was I supposed to go? You're barely here, Mason. What difference does it make?" That line stuck in my chest like glass. What difference does it make? I tried calling Mom again. She sighed loudly, like I was the problem. "She's your sister. She's struggling. You have no idea how hard it is raising two kids on your own. I'm not asking her to live on the street. I'm asking to be asked before someone moves into my home." "You sound selfish." That was the word. Selfish. The favorite label for anyone in my family who set a boundary. Over the next few days, things only got worse. I came home to find nail polish spilled on my hardwood floors. One of my guitars, an old Fender I'd saved up for in college, was scratched and missing 2 strings. Every time I tried to talk to Kayla, she acted like I was the one disturbing her peace. My name was on the lease. The rent was paid from my account. But none of it seemed to matter. I began to feel like a stranger in a place I built. It wasn't just clutter anymore. It was erasure. My home was gone, and with it, my control. You can only swallow so much before it turns into a scream. I started sleeping at the office. It wasn't glamorous, just a couch in the break room with an old fleece blanket, but at least it was quiet. I told my coworkers I was pulling late nights on a project. Truth is, I couldn't stand coming home anymore. Not when he was there. Kayla's new boyfriend. I never caught his name because I never cared to ask. He showed up on a Thursday night, barefoot and carrying a 6-pack like this was his weekend cabin. Suddenly, I wasn't just dealing with kids in my bed. I was dealing with a stranger drinking on my couch and calling me bro. I watched him walk around like he owned the place, tossing his jacket onto my chair, letting the kids scream while he scrolled through his phone. I asked Kayla if she was serious. She shrugged. They love him. He's good with them. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just another brush off in a long line of them. I tried to talk to my dad. I thought maybe he'd listen. Instead, he chuckled. "Sounds like you need to relax, son. You've always been a little too particular." That word, particular. Another way to say I cared too much. Another way to make me the problem. The worst part wasn't even the chaos. It was that no one saw me. No one cared that I was drowning in silence, watching my life unravel while being told to be grateful I could help out. I sat in my car one night outside the apartment, too exhausted to go in. I stared at the glowing windows, shadows of people moving inside a space that used to be mine. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt something sharper. Resolve. I wasn't going to live like this. I wasn't going to be erased in my own story. That night, I drafted an email to a lawyer. I wasn't asking anymore. I was telling. I printed out a formal notice and taped it to the fridge. 60 days to vacate. I offered help, money for a deposit, even contacts at a local shelter with family accommodations. I kept it civil, clear, and, most importantly, documented. Kayla read it and laughed. Are you kidding? You're kicking out your own family? Wow, you really are heartless. I stayed calm. You were never invited, Kayla. This was never supposed to be permanent. I'm done asking nicely. That same day, the phone call started. First Mom, then Dad, then Aunt Renee, who I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. She's your sister. She's doing her best. What kind of man puts his own family on the street? It didn't matter how many times I explained. They weren't listening. They were accusing. Every call felt like being put on trial for a crime I didn't commit. And every time, I repeated the same truth. She doesn't live here. She never did. She doesn't get to claim what isn't hers. By the end of that week, I had retained a lawyer. I didn't want to fight. I wanted peace. But if it came to it, I was ready to take this all the way to court. My attorney reviewed everything: photos, texts, emails, even a short video I took of the boyfriend walking out of my apartment with one of my speakers under his arm. She was blunt but fair. You've been more than patient. It's time to protect yourself. I never wanted it to come to this. But I was no longer interested in being the family doormat. When I served Kayla the legal eviction notice, she didn't yell. She just glared, eyes full of cold fury. You think this makes you better than me? She hissed. No, I said quietly. It just makes me free. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's strategy. The day I moved out of my own apartment, I packed a single suitcase. Just enough clothes for a few weeks and the essentials I couldn't risk losing: my passport, my hard drives, the last photo of me and my dog. I left everything else behind. Furniture, kitchenware, memorabilia. All of it became potential collateral damage. I booked a short-term rental across town. Clean, quiet, anonymous. No one yelling my name. No sticky floors. No guilt dripping from every corner. But peace didn't last long. 2 days later, I got a call from the building manager. Someone had reported damage in the unit. When I came by with my lawyer to document it, the place looked like a garage sale exploded in every room. My coffee table was broken. My printer was gone. And the safe in my closet, where I kept emergency cash and a few heirloom watches, had been forced open. When I confronted Kayla by text, she denied everything. You're imagining things, she wrote. You always overreact. That phrase again. Overreacting. It had followed me my whole life, like a leash. Then came the stories, ones I hadn't told, but others had. Apparently, I had abandoned a single mom and her kids. I was taking her to court out of spite. Some relatives posted vague messages online. A few mutual friends stopped replying to my texts altogether. But I said nothing. I didn't defend myself. I let them talk. Meanwhile, I documented everything. Photos, screenshots, bank statements showing withdrawals I hadn't made. A neighbor even messaged me privately. I've seen some things. Let me know if you need someone to speak up. And I would. Soon. Because court was coming. And this time, I wasn't showing up as the quiet, guilty son. I was showing up as the owner of my home, of my story, of my voice. I didn't come to fight. I came to finish it. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Neutral tones, polite silence. But underneath it all, tension so thick you could taste it. Kayla sat at the other table, arms crossed, looking like a character in a role she hadn't prepared for. Her lawyer whispered to her constantly. Mine didn't need to. She had the paperwork, the photos, the footage, and most importantly, the truth. The judge asked questions. Calm, direct, precise. I answered plainly. Showed timestamps, receipts, the lease with only my name on it. I explained how Kayla had moved in without consent, how she refused to leave, how my belongings had been damaged or stolen. Her side leaned heavily on emotion. She's a single mother. She had nowhere else to go. He's being vindictive. But the judge wasn't moved by sentiment. She was moved by facts. And the facts were mine. By the end of the hearing, the ruling was clear. Kayla had 30 days to vacate the apartment. Any remaining items belonging to me were to be returned or compensated for. I was granted a no-contact provision until the move was complete. And the final blow, she temporarily lost shared custody of her kids, pending review of her living situation. Kayla cried in the hallway after the decision. My mother gave me a look I'd never seen before, not angry, not disappointed, just unfamiliar, like she didn't recognize me anymore. My father didn't say a word. The drive home was quiet, but not the kind that hurts, the kind that heals. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't gloating. I was just breathing, for the first time in months. That night, I stood in front of my apartment building and paused. I had won, but at a cost. Family wasn't broken. It had already been broken. I had simply stopped pretending. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like reclaiming something I never should have lost. The apartment was quiet when I unlocked the door. Not the tense, expectant quiet of walking on eggshells, just silence. Honest and whole. She was gone. The kids' toys, the noise, the smells, the chaos, cleared out. What remained was mine, and mine alone. The walls still bore scratches. A lamp was missing. My bedroom door had a crack near the hinge. But I didn't flinch. This place was scarred, like me, but still standing. I opened the windows. Let in the air. The sky was pale and clean, like it knew I needed a fresh start. I spent that first day sweeping, wiping, restoring order, not just to the space, but to my thoughts. I put my guitar back on its stand, arranged my books the way I liked them, hung a new lock on the door. Symbolic, maybe, but necessary. I didn't return any calls. I didn't read the messages my mom left on voicemail. I didn't go on social media. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. I owed myself peace. And for once, I wasn't looking for apologies. I wasn't holding on to anger. I was just done. People talk a lot about forgiveness like it's something you give to others. But sometimes it's what you give to yourself. Permission to move on without waiting for things to be made right. The world outside didn't change. My family didn't magically see the light. But I had changed. I had learned to set a boundary and keep it. I had learned that saying no wasn't cruel. It was honest. Now, when I walk into my home, I don't brace myself. I don't shrink or justify or explain. I walk in, breathe deep, and know I'm safe here. I belong here. This, finally, is mine.